So 9.1, the 2023 Utilities Quarter Report. Mr. Barlow, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening or afternoon. I guess it's still bright out. Tonight I bring forward report 2023-095, and it's the second quarterly report, which covers the months of April, May, and June, as well as a year-to-date total for each of the different tables that are within the report. A couple of items I'd like to bring forward out of the report. There was an adverse water quality incident in AWQI from a total coliform hit on a sample at the Union Street flusher. As part of that, we resample to verify the result. The resample came back clean, so we know that the water was safe. The reason that we have that total coliform hit is because it's a general test that brings results from many different coliforms, not necessarily pathogenic coliforms. So that's why we do that general test. And then anything from a raindrop to dust from the road, anything can bring a hit on that test when sampling if something was to happen. So as a precaution, we resample and those results come back clean, and then we verify that the water is safe. Also, if you'll notice under the water treatment plant, there was an overflow event at the tower. We've been having some communication issues with the tower transmitters. So there's two transmitters there that communicate back to the water plant. That communication runs the high lift pumps at the water plant. So the pumps run off at the tower level. When there's an issue with that communication, it disrupts the plant processes and the pumping at the water plant. And without the understanding of the level of the tower, if the pumps of the water plant are on and the pressure reads too high, you're going to overflow the tower. There's a drain on it. It goes down to the road at Old Mill and into the catch basins. And because it's chlorinated water, it's considered a spill. So we have to call in the incident to the ministry and report when that does happen. Also on the wastewater side, we had those two large rain events in the first and end of April. So they did require bypass events at the wastewater plant, as well as CSO events at Old Mill, which is taken care of by the Public Works Division with sampling. So there was those incidents at that time, and those events were longer, and the quantity was higher than we have seen in quite a few years when you look at the amount of water that was flown in those events. So that's kind of the main points that I want to bring out of the report. If anyone has any questions, feel free.
Looking, could you comment on the hydro savings? It's always nice to see that in there. It's enough to acknowledge it. So
Yep.
Where's that coming from?
It's from the plant not running as much. If you look at the numbers, the amount of water, like this year, I think we're 200,000 cubic meters less than last year. So that's hours that our pumps don't have to pump, right? So the plant's able to shut down for those periods of time, and that's where the savings are. That's where the chemical savings are, because you're not treating that water. We're able to conserve, and then when we do have a business or an industry that needs the water, we're able to sell it to them and not have that extra cost occur with the non-revenue.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. A great report. It's great to see what I say is incredible progress, especially on the water side. And just a quick calculation, they get the average reduction of 700 kilowatt hours per day translates into $120 a day savings, over $43,000 a year. So I mean that's not insignificant. But the other part, we look at the overall water we produce, and I asked Jason earlier today to just get some numbers for 2020. So before some redevelopment we've done, before the leak detection equipment was employed, we were producing on average over 208,000 cubic meters of water a day, correct? Is that 208,000?
No, that would be monthly. Yes.
Monthly.
Yeah.
That was a test.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I know my own notes. And that's been cut virtually in half. So the amount of water we're producing is half, and our non-revenue water, which is really the one, we go back to many years ago. It was notoriously high forever and getting worse. And in 2020, 70.2% of the water we produced was non-revenue water. In other words, it was being produced, but it wasn't being built. I know there's hydro flushing and I guess back flushing and stuff. The water treatment plant that has to look after some of that, but the bulk of it was unaccounted for. And so today, where's that number is down to, where are we here, 34%. So a great job, Jason, you and your team to significantly reduce the amount of water we have to produce, the amount of energy it takes to clean that and produce that water, make it safe for consumption, and then the amount of coagulant usage as well. And 2020, that was 669 liters a day. That's down to 260-ish, so it's down more than half. And I just have to assume, I don't know what the cost is per liter, but that's another savings, especially when I think that chemical costs have gone up in recent years.
Yeah, back in 2019, 2020, that's when we also switched chemicals with the service sustainability review. So we had a chemical we were using, which we were using like 3 times the amount of chemical compared to the new one that we changed over to. The price was a little bit higher for the new one, but because of the reduced usage, we were able to save money by even spending more per kilogram on the chemical. But both those chemicals are now about the same price. So if you were to look at it, if we were to stick with the original chemical, that price has almost tripled compared to the doubling of the current chemical that we're using. And we're still, because of the reductions, we are able to still bring that chemical cost within or below budget.
Excellent. Well, I think the message of us to our customers is that the town continues to try to mitigate the water loss, mitigate the cost of energy, and try to do what we can to keep the cost of water, producing and treating water as low as possible, all things considered. So I have a great job.
And you already got your hand up, so we'll just thank you, Mr. Barlow. Doing a great work.
Thank you.
There's comments and keep off the good work. 9.2 is the traffic bylaw, and Director McClung is going to speak to this.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chair and members of council and CEO Morris. The report I have in front of you this evening is with respect to traffic bylaw, with respect to a community safety zone implemented over on Wood Avenue and on Harold Street as well. As we know, we don't have a consolidated traffic bylaw. That's why I'm looking at passing a bylaw or having council consider to pass a bylaw for the institution of a community safety zone in that area over on Wood Avenue where the school is located. So the recommendation is just that, to pass a bylaw for the installation of a community safety zone on Wood Avenue, Harold Street, between Broadview Avenue and Marguerite Street. And further, and this is something that we added, I felt it important to kind of take a step back. We do get a number of requests for this type of thing, for whether it be community safety zone or the lowering of speed on certain streets, and the police, the Smith Falls Police Service does get involved with speed monitoring in areas. But with respect to the implementation of additional community safety zones, I felt it prudent that suggest to council that we pass a moratorium for actioning any future community safety zone requests until such time as a draft policy can be drafted and brought to council for consideration. That way we're not reacting kind of an ad hoc basis. We do have a policy drafted that will guide us in future decision making, which I believe is important. So with respect to this request here this evening, this has been vetted through staff. We've had a meeting back on June 22nd with representatives from the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario and the Vice Principal at St. Francis de Sales Catholic School, as well as the Smith Falls Police Service, with looking at a community safety zone over on Harold and Wood Avenue as suggested in the recommendation. As we know, school is going to commence here after Labor Day, so we felt that the timing was appropriate. We do get resident complaints of excess speed over on the Wood Harold Street area, the area where we have speed bumps down on Harold Street. And we do regular traffic speed monitoring down there when we do get those complaints. And I believe the last time we did speed monitoring over there, the 85th percentile was within the posted speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour, shortly in and around there. It might have been 52 or 48, I don't remember exactly, but it didn't suggest that there was an issue at that time. Albeit driver behavior does change periodically, and probably prudent that we get out there this fall and do some more traffic monitoring just to see what the conditions look like. So that's pretty well it in a nutshell. I think this report's fairly straightforward. I look at it as, we do have a school over there adjacent to Harold Street, fronting Allen, and I believe it's appropriate that we do have a community safety zone over there. I'm not looking at this point to suggest we reduce the speed to 40 kilometers an hour. I think 50 kilometers an hour would be okay, with the effect that should somebody contravene the speed limit over there, that the speed fines and other infractions that are traffic related are doubled. So hopefully that is enough deterrent that people will see the new signage and they'll slow down. Not to say we can't institute a reduced speed in the future once we get a policy drafted and adopted by council. Happy to take any questions through the chair.
Thank you, Director McMahon. We could just break it down into the two parts. If you've got questions regarding the installation of the community safety zone, we'll talk about that, and then we'll see if there's a moratorium. So, Councillor Brennan, or if you want, we can do both.
Okay, thanks for that. And I'm not opposed to a community safety zone there. However, I do have a couple of questions, and really brings to mind the old traffic advisory committee, because this topic came up, this particular location came up last term when there was a traffic advisory committee, and one of the members of the committee, of course, was the deputy chief of police, and there was members of the community there, and so we discussed it, and I think it was agreed that they would have a look, they would keep an eye on it. I haven't seen a traffic count there. I will say anecdotally that I walk that street almost every day, and it's not very busy. Granted, there is a school there. I understand that, I haven't seen someone that I think is speeding. I think it's mostly local traffic that are accessing whoever's living on Wood Avenue or Marguerite. So I think it's important to make sure that schools are protected. However, I would be interested to see if we're going to do a community safety zone policy, are there any other things we can do on that particular stretch, which is only, I think, about like 500 meters. It's not even half a kilometer, way less than half a kilometer, I know that. I.e. in signage, children playing or children, I haven't seen, there are classes that walk along the sidewalk there. So I'm just wondering if we're going to do a policy for community safety zones, which I understand are legislated, and there's certain things, and one of the things was a 40-kilometer speed limit. I don't think I've seen too many people traveling with 40 kilometers. I know that anecdotally we've had reports that they are. But would it not be, could we not do something in terms of signage and stuff, and then work on a policy for the entire town? Because we don't want a knee-jerk, as you said, on a community safety zone just because we start getting a few places that should be parameters, i.e. number of cars traveling on the road, some sort of, and you just said 85 percentile are not speeding. So, and then work on that. And I wish there was a traffic advisory committee, because this is exactly the type of thing that they could help advise in terms of policy. But like I said, I'm not opposed to doing it now and then doing a policy later. I'm just wondering if we're just wouldn't it be better to have a policy and then do something now before the school year starts in terms of signage or whatever, and put a speed monitor there for the first month of September or whatever. I'm a big advocate of those speed signs that are, in some communities are everywhere, and there's lots of streets, as you know, that they would be useful. And I'm thinking of Queen Street, Jasper Avenue, Brockville Street. Those are the ones where, we always get complaints and we have the movable sign, but I think the one on Chambers is very effective as well, and it's there all the time. So I'll just put that out there. If my colleagues are favorable to a community safety zone, I am too. But I just put that out there.
So I just want to be clear, because Lot said there, you were supporting the recommendation for the community safety zone, but you would also be ready just to look at other mechanisms until we have full community safety zone.
Exactly.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
great. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. I'm kind of in agreement with Councillor Brennan in terms of instituting it right away. If we got signage up and maybe a traffic, a speed on here, maybe that would be okay until something got developed and brought it forward, because it'd be kind of nice to be able to institute it across the entire town, just to run flat. I'm not against it by any means, because if there's one thing I really think we should do is protect kids. And it's not just for kids, as a community does it, so it's also seniors and other people that are walking. But I'm kind of leaning towards his way of thinking. And I'm, like I said, I'm all for having, but maybe signage and a speed thing would help in the interim.
So I'll ask Director McMahon to respond, but isn't that what you're suggesting, is we go ahead quickly and get something in place for September for this school area, and then put in a more robust policy-driven response after? Is that?
It is, through the chair. Yeah, so we're poised right now to get the signs installed prior to the commencement of school this fall. We've got our utility locates in, materials ordered. Whether or not we use them there, use them somewhere else. I was just kind of preemptively going and getting the stuff ready to go. But I would say that it's quite common for municipalities to, when they're developing their community safety zone or traffic related policies around this and other things that are, speeding for one, where do you look at reduced speeds outside a community safety zone? The town of Smith Falls, or my department, doesn't have to reinvent the wheel here. There is a lot of good information out there from larger centers that have fairly, I wouldn't say robust, but they've already developed, that guiding policy to guide them, because it is difficult when you do get the calls to say yes or no without having some data to look at and then gauge it against the policy to see whether or not it's needed or not. And then if the answer is no, then it's an easy answer. No, it doesn't meet the criteria for the policy, so then it doesn't get implemented. The Public Works Department, the sign like you'd mentioned over on Chambers Street, the speed sign, that's very kind of site specific, because we do have a lot of calls for that area for speeding and whatnot. But other than that, the Public Works Department doesn't have a mobile digital speed reader that we can move around from place to place, similar to what the police service does. So I can certainly talk to the police service about putting it over there perhaps for a number of weeks through September. Or we do have the traffic counters that we put out, the tubes that we put down on the road that people drive over. It gives us the same data. So we could put that piece of equipment out there to monitor over a couple week-long period or a month, to get some good data as well. Like I said, on the, sorry, Chair, just on the 22nd of June, we did have the meeting with the school. They were quite adamant to get something in place, and I think in keeping in tune with the other schools that we have around town. It, in my opinion, it makes sense to have one over there. We do have, as we know, the Bellamy Farms development is approaching phase 3 of their development. We're looking at site plan approval for that. With that, there'll be perhaps more of an influx of students that are going to be going to the Catholic school or walking by the school to get elsewhere. So I only imagine that the pedestrian traffic is going to increase as that development builds out more kids.
Yeah, and I'm fully supportive of putting a community safety zone here. I guess when we look at other school areas in town, we have those in place. And we look at the pros and cons. I mean, if we can enhance safety, especially for children, and a con, I can't imagine why we wouldn't do it, frankly. I can't see a downside to requiring people to slow down through the school zone. I think in the end, safety should be put first, and if someone's got to slow down 50 to 40 going through there, if you consider a 40, is adding a few seconds to their trip. It really is nothing. And I've been looking into this in other places, and a lot of places have implemented broader reduction in speed limits. Actually went to 40 in some areas and 30 kilometers an hour in many school zones. And part of the rationale, a pedestrian hit by a car doing 50 kilometers an hour has only a 15% chance of survival. If the vehicle's moving 40 kilometers an hour, the chance of survival increases to 70%. So the difference of 10 kilometers an hour is huge. And if we're thinking of, if this is as Councilor Brennan said, it's about a 500 meter stretch altogether, having someone go 40 instead of 50 enhances pedestrian safety and a much better outcome if an incident does ever happen. So fully supportive of going to a community safety zone here. Supportive of a policy coming forward, hopefully this fall. I'd like to make sure we have maybe some considerations in place for before next spring rolls around and people get out traveling more. But I asked council if we would consider, I would make a suggestion that we would go to a 40 instead of a 50 because I don't see any downside to it.
Councilor McGuire, do you have any comments or want to weigh in?
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm having a hard time with the sound tonight, so I'm not sure if I'm following the debate effectively. I definitely see where Councilor Brennan is coming from. The last I saw, when the sign data came in, at least the last sign data I saw was the bumps seemed to be solving the speed problem. If this is more than a speed problem, then yeah, you could tool it, but if it's just for speed, I agree with maybe we could get some more data and see there. I think one of the frustrating things about this street is that I don't think it was built with proper sidewalks, because the sidewalks are the same grade as the street, and I think that doesn't give a proper separation between the street and the pedestrian travel pathway. So I just I think it's come up over the years, it continually comes up, so it just shows how important it is that when stuff gets built, it gets built right.
I think I caught what you're saying, Councilor McGuire. Thank you. And I hope you can hear me. Do we have consensus to proceed as soon as possible to designate that section of town as in the report a community safety zone? Councilor Brennan, did you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, I absolutely. But my advice would be, as we go forward, to create a policy that it's driven by data, that in terms of traffic and speed that has been collected. And I just wanted to confirm that we are going to, in terms of that school, we are building a new sidewalk on Allen Street upcoming. It connects into Marguerite, right?
If I could, through the chair, not in this construction season. We did defer that into perhaps this year's budget deliberations for consideration. Yeah.
In this year's budget.
Yeah.
So we have consensus, and I guess the other part of that, as the mayor pointed out, was if we designated a community safety zone, does that automatically bring the speed limit to 40, or do we have a choice?
We have a choice. We can certainly post it at 40 if that's council's wish, or we can leave it at 50 through that zone.
Anybody opposed to putting it at 40? No. Councilor Robbins.
Thank you. You know, I've been thinking about this a lot. I was down in Stittsville in a residential area last weekend, and everywhere I went, it was posted 40, and that's just for a residential area. Now, there wasn't a school in that particular area, but I mean, if it's posted in just a residential area to try to keep people safe, and this is a school and a residential area, maybe we should be looking at that too. So, yeah, I'd be in favor.
Okay. So we've got consensus on giving staff direction to proceed with the safety zone at 40 kilometers per hour. And I'm also heard consensus to proceed with your suggestion with your moratorium until you pull out a policy from neighboring friends and tailor it to Smith Falls' needs. And Councillor Brennan suggested, and the mayor, like this could happen this fall and winter, ready for next spring. Does that work with you?
It does.
Is there a panko?
And just one final piece, Councillor McKenna and I were at the EMO conference last week, and the trade show, and there's a lot of different vendors there selling products, but there's a lot of new technology emerging now, which makes it very easy to purchase little products that can be even installed in street lights, which can monitor traffic speeds, volumes, air quality, what the numbers are there. So this technology we should look into to see about, rather than maybe have a speed sign we have to move around, these can simply be installed and left there or moved somewhere else and reinstalled, but and the data always feeds via cellular networks back to a computer, so easy to implement the stuff that's in there now.
So thank you. Don't go anywhere, Director. The next item on our agenda is Confederation Bridge update. Director is going to speak to his report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so the report I have in front of you this evening is with respect to the general arrangement drawing that we commissioned as a change order for McIntosh Perry to complete as part of the Municipal Class EA. As we know, the Municipal Class EA is wrapping up. We've issued the notice of study completion on the town website as well as in the paper, and it runs from the 3rd of August through to September 4th. I will note that there's a typo in my report on page 2 of 2, first paragraph. I said that it will conclude on September 1st. That was an error. It's actually September 4th. So my apologies for that. So that is wrapping up here right after the Labor Day weekend. And myself personally, I haven't received any comments or anything from the public. And I have reached out, but haven't heard back yet from McIntosh Perry for the same, whether or not they've heard any comments from the public. That all said, I mean, we've been dealing with the Municipal Class EA for some time now, and it's been well out there publicized in the public. The general arrangement drawing is respective of the bowstring bridge with the concrete deck spanning from abutment to abutment. And it was important to complete that general arrangement drawing because we didn't have that prior to council's agreeance to proceed with a pedestrian bridge. Prior to that, our general arrangement drawings were respective of, a vehicular crossing, a single lane or double lane, and that's what we've seen before. So it was important to complete that general arrangement drawing for the Municipal Class EA, so we're transparent to the public. Not only that, but it does inform when we go to detailed design, which I'm working on right now, drafting the RFP for those services, that we do give a little bit of guidance through that RFP document for what council's wishes are. In the report, I did have the drawing was in there. If you've happened to look at it, it's respective of a plan view and a cross-sectional view as well of the drawing. It's not in any great detail in terms of what you would notably see in a detailed design. That wasn't the intention of the general arrangement drawing. It was just for illustrative purposes to say this is what it's going to, at the end of the day, what it's going to look like. So with that, like I said, I am in the process of compiling data to get an RFP out this fall, with the hopes that we can have a bridge in place by, I'm aiming for end of Q2 next year. That's aggressive. We're working as quickly as we can on that. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councilor Brennan.
Yeah, just one question. So the drawing, I know there'll be more detail to see later, but that reflects the budgeted amount to be allocated for the bridge.
Yep.
Mayor Penko.
Thanks for bringing on. Good to see us coming to the next stage of the process. We know it takes a while to get these things through. So you're saying this is a general design, it's not the detailed design. So when we had our design group meet, Councilor McGuire, Councilor Toy, and myself, with yourself, with representatives of Richfield, we had talked about a higher bulb as an example to help take away that barrier to the views of the river below, I guess. So would that be part of the detailed design process? Or is it detailed design going to be a reflection of what we see here?
Yeah, so it's something we can certainly incorporate. My plan for the RFP for design services is to put it out that our wishes are for something similar to the general arrangement drawing, but then open it up for proponents to look at it. You know, maybe perhaps there's other design consultants may look at it in terms of utilizing the center pier to carry some of the load. I know, Councillor McKenna, I know you had a couple of questions via email today. I'm sure we'll get to those, but I know when we had our subcommittee that we were working through some of those detailed design elements, if you will, we talked about a viewing platform mid-span, and that simply wouldn't work for this style of bridge, nor would it work for many styles of bridges just based on the new bridge codes of the day. It makes it restrictive on what you can do when you start cutting into structural, superstructure elements of the bridge to be able to support a viewing platform. And certainly in the case of a bowstring, you know, we can't cut a section out of that top cord to put a viewing platform. Albeit we could look and consider a viewing platform perhaps adjacent to the bridge on either end of the approaches looking downstream. So that's something that we can incorporate as well. But those would be additional items over and above the scope of work. Should a proponent want to look at it through a different lens, we would certainly consider that through the RFP review process and bring it back to council for consideration.
So my recollection with the design group meeting was it would be very difficult, very expensive to create a viewing platform. But I think we agreed that we can create a wider bridge, which will allow for essentially travel lanes essentially for active transportation, as well as an area of relaxation, reflect, relax, have something to eat, have a drink, whatever, coffee. So I thought that now we look at this is 4,500 millimeters, I guess 4.5 meters.
4.5 meter width, yes.
So, and a travel lane has to be 1.5 meters?
1.5 meters, yep.
So I would, my preference was we go a little bit wider, because I would only leave about 1.5 meters as a point of people to stop and enjoy the experience, right? And I would ideally, I mean, I don't know how much more cost it would be to simply go a little wider. I mean, it's a long span. So I'd be interested in understanding or having as an option wide enough to accommodate those experiences. And so whether that's, I'm not sure, 5 meters, 6 meters, maybe 2 meters each side plus a meter and a half travel lanes. So that's what 3 would be. 2, 4, 6 meters, I guess. 7 meters altogether, I guess, would probably accommodate all that.
Right.
Just so if we're building this as an opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity, I guess, to create more of an experience here. And I think by having the top of the bowl lower, it is still creating a barrier. Or if we can go higher, it will create that more of a barrier for view, and then an opportunity to be be able to enjoy the experience without being too close to the lights that might be whizzing by behind you.
Yeah, we can certainly incorporate all of that. I wouldn't suspect, I think the limitation here is on the span. And that's why I'm saying, you know, there's some work that I need to do in investigating the center pier just to determine whether or not it can carry any load. But should it be able to, then I would incorporate that into the RFP as an alternative design option, should somebody want to consider that and present a design for that over and above the design that we're looking for, whether it be marginally wider than the 4.5 meters, maybe go. I don't think going wider is so much a limiting factor as it is the overall span.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to note that with the elevation or the height of that bowstring cord will be dependent on, and I'm not a structural engineer, but it's going to be governed by the loading and the span requirements of the bridge in terms of how high it needs to be or how low it needs to be.
Yeah, I guess I never, sorry, I forgot the engineer's name, but I think he mentioned that in the meeting we had that we can't go, should we go higher? We can't go higher. We need an engineer to be able to move it out higher. It's just a matter of, I guess, how that will be done.
Councillor McGuire? Sorry, you're on mute, I believe.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I hope I can, I'm still not hearing everything, so I'm sorry if I repeat myself, but my question is, I'm wondering what's different between this rendering or general design we got tonight and the kind of prefab option? Sort of what's incorporated into this design?
Do you understand the question?
I heard that, I didn't hear, and the other option.
I think he said difference between prefab, the general, original, maybe I have to do it again.
Prefab bridge design that is already out there on the market, you just buy one and put it in. Or this is going out for a design. What's the difference between this product that you presented tonight to us? The general arrangement drawing.
Yeah, so the general arrangement drawing simply, it demonstrates doesn't get into detail, but it demonstrates council's wishes in terms of a bowstring bridge, pedestrian bridge, concrete deck. So like I say, there isn't a tremendous amount of detail in there, and certainly we couldn't put a general arrangement drawing out to market and have somebody build it and provide a structure. If I understood the question correctly, a modular style bridge, or I'll call it like a bridge in a box. We built one in Gananoque and during my tenure down there, and it was a galvanized structure. It was a Bailey style bridge. They were purpose built back in war times for the Army to cross rivers and whatnot. And it is just that. It's a prefabricated sections of bridge. It gets all riveted, bolted together. It's not a pretty bridge to look at. This particular structure, and let's keep in mind that, there's only a couple of proponents out there that actually can construct a bridge. One of them being, you've heard me speak of Algonquin Bridge. Excuse me, another bridge manufacturer out there is Akro, A-K-R-O-W, I believe is how it's spelled. So there's only a couple of them in the Ontario market, and they would be doing a good majority of the bridge design because they're the specialists, they're the structural engineers, they're the ones that fabricate the bridge on the direction of whoever it is we commission to do the detailed design. So whoever we hire is going to be, they're going to be working on the abutment design to inform on span, dimensions of the abutment for the bridge to actually be engineered and fabricated to sit on the abutments. So they're going to work in tandem. Okay. And then once the detailed design is finished, we put it out to tender, and then the general contractor will commission either of those previous two parties I mentioned to actually construct the bridge.
Okay.
That's how that works. So.
Councillor McGuire?
Yeah, thanks. So I guess we're just kind of confused or a little frustrated because we had the design committee and we got a lot of ideas that came out of that, but I don't see them incorporated into this general arrangement. Things like we talked about a higher post string with vertical support members. This got a low post string with a front truss, same as the prefab one we were looking at that we said we were looking for before. It's also got a width of 4.5 meters. If we look at two travel lanes of 1.5 meters, that only leaves 0.75 meters on either side to view the falls or to view the downstream view. So I just, now that we're putting this out there for an RFP, I feel like it's limiting. I hope it doesn't limit the imagination that the proposal is bringing, because I think there was a lot of good feedback from that. It felt really good coming out of that design committee, but it doesn't seem like that's been incorporated. A lot of that stuff's been incorporated by the consultant. Another idea that came out of it was having a railing that may be viewable for people of all heights, or somebody was sitting in a chair, or and that's not incorporated into this. So I'm confused at what we did in April, what's come out of it, and now I'm nervous of putting this out there for design as much as we can ask for creative influence with the detailed design proposals. There's not a lot of imagination in this general arrangement to inspire that. So I'm hoping at the end of the day, it seems like we keep coming back to this prefab looking option, and you need to get a landmark put in here, so I'm hoping that we get some kind of a landmark at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a stab at the first response, and you may have missed it given where you are, but the mayor raised some of those of your comments as well. And I won't speak for Director McMahon, but what he did say is you can, when we do go out, we can say we are open to option A, B, or C if these could be incorporated. We're interested in seeing those. The only thing I heard that is not on the table is a viewing platform off the bridge. But the width of the bridge and making it more pedestrian friendly, I heard is something we will look at. The height of it is what it has to be based on the span. We're not going to change the view to compromise safety, or we can't. But I've heard, and maybe I'm misunderstood, but I'm hearing there is flexibility when we go out to tender, that as many options as we can within our budget constraints, the safety of the bridge, and there's only, I think there was about the only constraints, money and
Money, time. One of the big constraints is the bridge code of now versus probably just even a number of years ago, maybe within the last half a decade. The codes have changed. Things are getting more restrictive. That's why I'm saying the general arrangement drawing is respective of a span from one abutment to another, one side to another, with a bowstring, that being council's decision is the bowstring bridge. And if you recall, I brought a report some time ago with a bunch of different options. That was my recommendation: bowstring, concrete deck, paint it black. One other thing that we talked about within our subcommittee was lighting. That can be incorporated. That can be worked through the detailed design portion of the work. I can identify all those provisions in the request for proposal document. Here's our wish list. Here's what we'd like to see. If we're able to raise that bowstring cord to have it higher, so we get a better view, but just keep in mind, at some point it's going to cross your viewing sight line within the structure itself. So at some point in time, as you walk across the bridge, you're going to be looking at that structural element. It will have a railing. And again, there's code requirements that we need to be cognizant of. Again, I'm not a professional structural engineer, but that would have all been taken into account on this general arrangement drawing, albeit it's fairly limited. It's not what we were going to see in a detailed design, but we'll get there.
Councillor McGuire, were you able to hear most of that?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I mean, this, I know we had a subcommittee that met in April. And I never really heard what happened there, but for me, this report is for our information. And we'll hear more of the aesthetics and everything else before we go to the tender. And that hopefully we'll all be here, and Councillor Quinn's not here. Councillor Quinn was on the committee. Chris is here though, but we'll all be here, and then we'll have a fulsome discussion on what this thing is going to look like and what it's going to cost and that sort of thing. But this is just an update as far as I know. Yeah. Right.
Yes, if I could add to that, Chair. Yeah, so exactly. So when we go out to RFP, there's going to be a report coming back to council with the results of that procurement process. There'll be a recommendation to go with, design consultant A versus the others. But it will be transparent. I'll have in that document all the different, presumably one to the next is going to design something very, very similar based on the criteria, but then there's going to be options opened up for them to, no pun intended, think out of the box a little bit with something to, if there's limiting factors with the code that they can't do something in terms of design that kind of matches the general arrangement drawing, that they could say, you could do this, raise that bowstring. However, our engineering cost is going to be X. And maybe that adds a 30% premium to the structure itself. And that's where we're going to have to take things into consideration and determine what is our threshold for capital expenditure on this structure.
Councillor Rob, do you want to add anything, or?
No, I'm good, thank you.
So the recommendation is that council, or did you want to go?
Just, yeah, I guess just so I'm thinking in the RFP, we simply prioritize the sight lines and the viewing from the bridge deck to the surrounding water falls and stuff, I guess. And so they know that as an overarching vision to be accommodated within. And so I think what I look at here is very similar to what we saw months ago, right? And at the top of the bowl, at the peak of the bridge, or the middle of the bridge, it's going to be about 2 meters above, roughly 2 meters above the bridge deck. Which, so for some people who are taller, it's going to be right there. Right. And as you go down from there, it's going to be a bit of an obstruction. And I guess same as the railing, I guess. How can we, if we keep that overarching priority, then they can come back with railing options. So I know there's all kinds of various configurations for the railing that would be as barrier-free as possible. I mean, it's going to be a barrier to make for safety, but something that people can see through. I know the barrier also has to be a certain height. So I guess if people are sitting there, are you looking underneath the top rail, or you're looking above the top rail? So it's all those factors, I guess, to try and help give people the opportunity to enjoy something without a barrier directly into eye level or lower level.
Right. I would argue that anything could be done if there was unlimited funds to do so, but we know that we got to be respective of budget, and that's a decision we'll make as we advance through this project before we go to tender. Yes.
CEO Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The advantage of going the RFP route is we can invite creativity. So we're not tendering to say, this is what we want you to design. They need to follow engineering principles and guidelines for bridges, but they'll look after that. This has been a helpful discussion to understand those desirable features that will embed in the RFP and challenge them to come back and check off as many of those as possible. And so for one example, we were told a viewing platform is not doable based on the current arrangement, but the current arrangement doesn't take advantage of the center pier. So Mr. McMahon is looking at opening it up to potentially use the center pier, which might open an opportunity for some kind of better viewing. We don't know what that looks like, but we'll challenge the proponents that submit a proposal to the RFP to come up with something. So I think this has been really helpful. I think we can embed everything we'd like to see, and we'll let them come back and see how much of it they can.
Thank you. My only other question, there is a recommendation that council accept this report, and it looks like we've got consensus to do that. Where, is it in this RFP that we would look at the viability of the existing abutments, or are we assuming that the bridge design would come with a new abutment regime that needs to be designed to fit that particular structure? And is it included in the design that we're putting out?
It is. The general arrangement drawing is respective of new abutments. It doesn't show the existing abutments there, but the idea there is to use the existing abutments as a facade on the front with new abutments in behind. You know, so we're keeping with the heritage, if you will, of those stones, those limestone stones, both for the center pier and the abutment face, if you will.
Okay, well, you have enough information. I think the CAO has also summarized it quite well. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to address, you did have a question a little while, or in your email there, Councillor McKenna, about the existing structure that sits there. You know, it's been out of service since 2015. My intention is to get a tender out this fall to get that structure removed. I do have to do some designated substance reporting to give consideration to perhaps lead paint that's in the paint. That's in process right now. I'm working on that. It'd be really nice to get the bridge removed. And at the same time, the thought is when we have cranes there set up to remove the bridge, that we could do the load testing on the existing abutments and the center pier at the same time, because the equipment's already in place. Most of the costs associated with that is with mobilizing cranes to do so. So I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone here, remove the bridge, do the load testing on the abutments and the pier at the same time. So I'm queuing up to get that done at some point this fall.
When the water's low.
Well, yeah, the water is low, but that's not really limiting me, but the timing's right, I think. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did know that we have a member of the gallery who did want to ask a question, or make a comment. And in the procedural bylaws, the new updated bylaws, it does allow the chair the discretion, sole discretion to do that, but I would turn to my colleagues and just see if anybody has a question. So please approach the podium, identify yourself, and if you would just keep your question or comments brief, we would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, and council people.
We're nervous about this.
Just tell us your name.
My name is Lee Johnson. My husband is Phil Meany. And we have been interested in the heritage of Smith Falls for years. We have visited town council on many occasions, but today, unfortunately, we're under fairly short notice to be prepared for talking about the bridge. We've been dealing with one of those flood situations in the basement for the last few months with insurance people and so on and so on. And so we have been a little bit behind in catching up with all the newspaper articles that you've already put out about how the process is going. But before you finalize things any further, we just wondered if we could raise one possible idea worth considering, mainly because we have been able to search online and got some numbers and costs and references that you may not have already been informed about by your previous engineers who have looked at proposals. What we had hoped to tell you about is something called the Town Lattice Timber Frame Bridge, a covered bridge that was built in Guelph by the Eastern Conference of the North American Timber Framers Guild, of which Phil is a member. It was an exciting project that combined grant money from the governments, local sponsorships, city money, and a lot of donations from local people in the area. It was built in a conservation area over a waterway that was very important. And it was built with all the volunteer professional timber framers. And it was done in 1992. There is a website that you can look at to get more details called the Town Lattice Timber Frame Bridge, Guelph, Ontario, 1992. It's become a real, the one that's already built was the first one in Canada. So if Smith Falls would consider it, it might consider asking Guelph how they found it. And we're seeing reports that it's become an ideal tourist attraction. It brings in artists, photographers, and local traveling people to see it. There is a video on the website, and there's a lot of paperwork, information, statistics, and stuff like this that you can read that gives you fast answers. They had professional people like Mr. McMahon was mentioning, Algonquin Bridge Company were part of it. There were very, very large cranes brought in locally. It was all done, even though it's North American, there were American participants who came in to help build it, but it is definitely a Canadian project. Built at 125th
125th anniversary of Canada's birthday. Yeah.
Yes. So it was a great project, and it's probably a possibility that you might consider. It's there is a small handout that we brought with us if you're interested in looking at it. The pictures you'll have to look at online, but it just has some of the facts.
The information is basically condensed, more technical about the bridge, but the video itself tells you what was involved, who was doing what, and how it was done. And it was all done within 3 weeks. 400 people, but the first 2 weeks, they were just basically laying out the lattice, the forms, the raising of the bridge, and then it tells you all the safety features that we took in order to raise the sides up. We had pike poles, pulleys, and then when we finished that bridge, we slid that bridge over to the river by pulley, and then the cranes picked it up, set it in, about a quarter of an inch.
Okay.
Beautiful job.
Now,
But it's a community project.
yes.
That's what it is.
The costs had go through the same process you've been going through already. They had all the environmental reports. They had all the engineering details that had to be worked out. And that information is available online with contact names and numbers for you. They will gladly share that with you if you look it up. This particular project, although it was 30 years ago, the whole project cost $542,000. The length of it was 120 feet span.
That's the clear span. But the lattice at the bottom was 132 feet, and the lattice at the top was 144 feet. So it's with the lattice bridge with an overhang.
Covered roof, but you could see through.
We would be happy to receive your handouts.
Yeah.
One for all of us or just one?
One for all of you.
Okay, I'd be happy to receive that. And council is welcome to look up online. We'll just stop for a minute. I'll just see if my colleagues have anything before we wrap this up. Councilor Brent.
No, we could copy the one for everybody.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I just had a quick look at the bridge. It's beautiful.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, sir.
I just had a quick look on my.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Technology.
It's a 55-minute video, but the people that are involved in the bridge are all the people that were in charge.
Yeah, we're,
And they were telling you
Right.
what the rollers were like and how we had to pull it and everything else.
Yeah.
But there were men and women on the bridge.
but the people that are speaking on the videos, they're not tourists. They're not people giving their 2 cents worth. They are the officials who were involved in the design and all the work crew organizing and all those kinds of details. All the safety things they had to think about, just like you're doing now. But this is the plea for one last thought before you make that final decision and sign the check.
Thank you.
it's certainly in keeping with your desire to pay attention to the heritage nature of Smith Falls. And I found a really old picture of the bridge before you had the metal bridge. And it was in the copy of Glenn Lockwood's book. And it was a wooden bridge, not unlike this one. It was uncovered. But this one that we have suggested to you is a covered bridge possibility, but it has lots of looking out places along it.
Well, thank you very much
You're welcome.
for bringing it to our attention and for your passion.
Okay.
And it is contagious. We get it. This has been a multi-year.
Yes.
We are
Yes.
making this up tonight. It's been years. I don't want to mislead you by giving you the impression that we might go in a different route. I wouldn't rule anything out, but this has been a long
Yes.
process to get here today, so I
Yes.
don't want to mislead you. But again, council has this as another consideration, and we respect the way you presented it tonight and appreciate your passion. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're always welcome back.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, and we are not doing anything professionally now. Phil is a heritage restoration mason by qualification, trained at Perth, and I've been a researcher for years. I started off my career in education, but I have moved into many other fields, and we do a lot of research on historical structures. So our sharing of the information is totally because we care about you all.
That's right. Thank you. And it didn't cost us anything.
That's right.
Thank you so much. All right. 9.4 is the Smith Falls Welcome Guide report. Ms. Crowder, you're going to speak to that.
Thank you again. I don't have a long report after that follow-up. It's pretty quick, but I did want to introduce the new welcome guides to council and the community. We decided to develop welcome guides after hearing comments from the community and from businesses that we need to provide more information in a well-packaged booklet or products that really outlines concisely the options, the resources, and the services available not only for businesses but also residents in the community. So we've worked really hard over the last year to help develop these. I hope they meet council's expectations and the communities. I wanted to thank Carrie Barlow, our Community and Economic Development Coordinator, for facilitating these and doing the design and getting them there. So I'm happy to ask any questions, answer any questions that council may have.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I was quite impressed with how well it was done, and the fact that you've got two different ones, one for people and one for business. I thought it was extremely professional. So anyway, just kudos.
Looking up by Councilor Brown.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. It's really impressive, coupled with your interaction with our volunteer base. I've met people. Someone that just joined Rotary actually had been here for 3 or 4 years and just was looking for something to do. So your assistance with that, with newcomers as well, is much appreciated. It's a really nice document, and working with the real estate, that was the other comment we heard last week, was the real estate agents need to have something in hand when they sell a house, and now they have something that's really nice. So good job.
Thank you. So we're in the process of printing these. We will be working with community organizations and the real estate organizations and the offices in town to promote this. The digital copies are currently on our website already, so if anyone's interested, they can go to the website and search them up. And once the copies are printed, we'll be distributing and happy to provide council as well with copies.
Sure. I think it's great too. The beauty of the digital is you can keep it current as we go forward. So the next time that we do it, under recycling and garbage, it would be nice to see the real deal. And there is a place to recycle materials, so that was finally, if that's all I got to say, it was wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, and let's get it promoted. So we're down to, when we come out of in camera, we've added a priority item 9.5 is committee appointments. And Clerk Costello is going to speak to that with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I bring forward this evening some appointments to our new Smiths Falls for All Committee. Last council meeting, we appointed 4 members, and this evening I'm happy to advise that we received 2 new applications from Sherry Crawford and Janet Sinclair. As well, we've had some moving around on the Downtown Business Association Board of Management. Currently, there's 3 members, and we've had 4 applications brought forward, all of which the Board of Management has blessed. Liz Wood, who would be an appointee for the Pickled Pig, Don Proud, Jay Lee, and Susie Knoll. So with the concurrence of council, I'd like to bring forward formal appointments to the next meeting of council.
And I'm looking around and seeing consensus, and that will come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the people who put their names forward. Probably always an intake, would you say, Clerk Costello, that if people are still interested in volunteering, after they read the visitors, new resident guide, a new business guide, they might find lots of opportunities to put their hand up. Committee, board, external organizational updates. Anyone? I will just raise one. Councilor Brouillard, do you have anything? No? Okay. Just, the mayor and I attended the AMO Association Municipalities of Ontario Conference last week. We'll come back at a council meeting with a little more detail on some of the highlights from there. Well worth our time. One of the things with, as your council rep on public health, there was an announcement from the Minister of Health that for public health in particular, I'll give you a quick update. The province, we share the costs with the province for all of our public health to the tune of currently 80% 70% provincial, 30% municipal. That was a switch. They've switched it back to the province will now go back to the historic 75% cost share, and the municipalities will be 25%. They've also announced a 1% annual increase for the next 3 years to the base budget of public health, which would come to be determined from the provincial side. We understand more details to follow. There's one-time funding to assist health units across, there's 34 across Ontario who may be interested in merging together. So that will be interesting. I think more significant is they're going to, what they're describing as clarify the roles of our local public health. So what does that mean? Pretty traditional roles of public health, COVID, clean water, ensuring our restaurants and our beaches are all safe, population health, all kinds of work. So when you hear words like clarify the roles, do they have new jobs they want the health unit to do, or do they want us to do less? Stay tuned. I'm on another call this week on this topic. But as I say, the conference, I was delighted to attend, and the mayor and I will bring back a report on what's happening provincially, nationally, and internationally that we heard at the conference. So I'm not seeing any other requests. We have no correspondence items. Any notice of motions? No. I will entertain a motion that council adjourn its proceedings at 6:21 and stand so adjourned to the next duly called committee meeting. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McGuire. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Please adjourn.
Good job.